Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Today's episode will be another in the season preview series, and we will be focusing on the Houston Texans. For those of you who haven't seen one of these episodes before, I will be breaking down my projected offensive and defensive starters for the team for the 2017 season that's upcoming. Now, of course, we do have pre-season training camps still to come, so this may not end up being entirely accurate. However, I do feel if the team were to play tomorrow, this is likely how they'd line up, and it will probably be an accurate representation of the starting 22 on week 1, or during week 1. I will then be going briefly over the schedule and just highlighting what I consider the key sort of stretches for this team. I'm giving my projected record for the 2017 season before giving my thoughts as to the three main areas on this roster that are going to have a massive impact on whether this team can return to the playoffs and potentially do some damage there. And if they don't work out, the bottom could fall out and this team could end up with a pretty high draft pick. So we'll hop in with the offensive starters. At quarterback, of course, we've got DeShaun Watson, the first round selection that they traded up to get. It could be Tom Savage. I just don't think that's going to be the case. The ceiling with him doesn't seem as high as it is with Watson. The roster is pretty good. It's certainly ready to compete within this division, which doesn't appear to be amongst the best in the NFL at this point in time. I mean, they won it with a 9-7 record last year. Watson will give them, the tricky, gutsy plays. He'll make some, I'm sure he'll make some miracle look type plays over the course of the season with his elusiveness and his ability to run, as well as a good arm. How much he can eliminate mistakes and how quickly he can grasp the NFL speed and the concepts, that will be what determines how successful he is as a rookie. Running back, Lamar Miller will be the starter. I think Donta Foreman will probably take over as the number 2, but Alfred Blue will also see some snaps. This is a pretty good group. Of course, Lamar Miller adds some speed, and he's a more competent interior runner than I suppose many expected coming out of college. Foreman is a pure power runner. I'm not sure he's going to be looking to get to the outside too much in the NFL, but he will give them a great goal line and short yardage back. And Miller's also an asset in the passing game, so I'm a big fan of this group. I think they could do a lot of work for this team this year. At wide receiver, got DeAndre Hopkins, of course. Hopefully he won't be held back this season by subpar quarterback play. We know what he is. He's a true number 1. Great jump ball ability, can make ridiculous catches. Very difficult to play one-on-one in man because he will just locate the ball and make a play on guys. And he can get down the field. One of the best receivers in the league. He just needs to actually have someone that can deliver for him. Will Fuller will be the number 2. Started the season really well last year, but then we saw some inconsistencies in his hands. Struggled as a route runner. Looked indecisive to me, and you can see that in a guy's breaks. I'm not sure he was playing enormously confident for the second half of the season. Again, quarterback play was an issue, and that had an effect, no doubt, on his productivity. But I think he wasn't playing at a particularly high level. He'll need to improve, and I think Jalen Strong will be in the slot, but I think this spot's potentially wide open come training camp. At tight end, CJ Fedorowicz will be the starting tight end. I suspect we'll see Ryan Griffin. This is a team I can see utilising a lot of 2 tight end sets in order to try and give DeShaun Watson extra protection and just to give a bit of a boost to this running game, which I think is going to be an integral part of this team's game plans. Neither one an exceptional threat down the field. I think they'll both be utilised primarily as blockers. Fedorowicz he'll have some opportunities to perhaps operate as a safety blanket, especially with Hopkins and Fuller being guys that are going to likely get down the field a bit more often. So we'll see what they can both offer in the passing game, but I think they'll be utilised a lot as pass protection and run blocking guys. Offensive tackle, Dwayne Brown had a bit of a down season last year, but he's one of the more reliable and solid left tackles in the league. Great in pass protection, a solid run blocker. Chris Clark at right tackle's a bit of a concern coming over from Denver. He's not been great the last few times we've seen him on the field, this could be a problem. Right tackle's been an issue for a couple of years for this team. The guard position, this also concerns me a little. Xavier Suafio and Jeff Allen. Neither one show me that they're a particularly effective player. By no means total liabilities. I'm just not sure they're up to the standard of what I think is, for the most part, a playoff caliber team. But Suafio in particular is young. We'll see what happens there. Allen just did not impress me in his time in Kansas City. And centre Nick Martin, who I think has got the Pro Bowl potential, was exceptional in college, was unfortunate last season. So I think he could be a huge boost to this team, and his level of play could end up salvaging what looks like a pretty mediocre group on paper. And Nick Novak will be at kicker. This offense is one of the hardest to really figure out heading into the season. Of course, a rookie quarterback will complicate things. He might hit the ground running and have a lot of success, or it could be an absolute disaster. We've seen both ends of the spectrum in recent years. I certainly think he'll make the team more dangerous than they were last year. That's not hard. The play was at a very low level, but I think the real thing for me is this run game. Lamar Miller now has a really effective complement. I'm a lot higher on Donta Foreman than a lot of people, but I think he's going to be a very good player in this league, and I think he's in a really good spot there. How effective those two can be behind it, well, as I say, doesn't look like a great line. I think will go a long way. DeShaun Watson's going to be a lot more effective if he's got that support, and teams have to respect that run game. And of course, he has to produce to allow that to an effective level off the play action, and just in general to allow that run game to be as effective as possible. But he's certainly got the weapons to do it. This team could be sneaky good. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I think it might take a while, but I do think they're in a good position to make the playoffs this year because of their defensive group. And we'll start with the defensive ends. Of course, they get JJ Watt back, who, if he can come back healthy, is the best player in the NFL. Best defensive player I've personally witnessed in my time as a fan. So yeah, not much to say there. If he's healthy, this team is a heck of a lot more dangerous. I think Carlos Watkins will play defensive end for this team. I don't think that's a particularly common opinion, but I do think it would be the spot he would be best in. I think he can offer a little bit of pass rush there, and he'll learn some discipline by playing in that system. I think it will help him. I think he can play the run well. Probably wouldn't want him as a nose tackle at this stage in his career. I think you'd lose some of his pass rush ability. I think defensive end is the right spot, and I think he's got the talent to earn a starting job. I think DJ Reed will be the nose tackle. However, I would have the caveat that I would not be shocked to see Vince Wilfork sign it during training camp and come back for one more season. If so, he'll be a big boost, of course. One of the best run-stopping nose tackles the league's seen. Obviously not that player anymore at this stage in his career, but he can still certainly contribute and will boost the run-stopping capabilities of this unit. Outside back are one of the best pairings in the league in Jadeveon Clowney and Whitney Merciless. These guys were fantastic two-way players last year, played the run and the pass very well. Didn't necessarily show up statistically, especially in Clowney's case, not a huge number of sacks, but there was constant pressure. They both, as I say, shut down the run. Getting outside on this team was an absolute nightmare for teams. With JJ Watt in the middle this season, I think they've got the opportunity to put up far better numbers. His team's going to be very dangerous rushing with that, the three of them along this pair leading the way. Inside linebacker, I think they've gotten better. I was a big fan of Zach Cunningham entering the draft. I think he's a great fit. This team needed to get more athletic at the position. I think it might not show early on, but he's going to upgrade their coverage at that spot. I think Bernard Kinney's quietly been very effective for the Texans, and I think he gets the nod over Brian Cushing. It might not be the case immediately with Cunningham starting, but I think certainly a few games in, he's going to get himself a job. Cushing, unfortunately, has just been sapped by injuries. I don't think he should be starting at this stage, even though he does bring great leadership and knowledge to the field. The cornerback spot, things a little bit more spotty here. Jonathan Joseph will be the number one, very experienced player, solid overall corner, not the most athletic, but his intelligence will have him likely be the standout of this group. Kareem Jackson, far more talented, but it's not really come together for him yet. I think this year he'll get the opportunity to start. He needs to run with it. He's not been great to this point, but he's, as I say, incredibly athletically gifted. And Kevin Johnson, I think, will be the third corner. This is a spot that's likely open, but I've got him getting the nod at the moment. Then we've got the safety spot. Two players I have no problem admitting I have little to no knowledge of in KJ Dillon and Andre Howe. I will certainly be keeping an eye on them in pre-season. I think this spot is, looking at it on paper, it looks like it's wide open. So we'll see how things play out in training camp and over the course of pre-season. Hopefully, this position doesn't end up being the undoing for what's a very promising group. And Shane Leckler, one of the best punters of all time. So defensively, I'm expecting a lot from this group. I really do think they've got the talent there to be one of the best units in the league. The front seven has superb talent. These three players, whilst I mentioned their pass rushing in Watt, Clowney and Mercer, they all play the run incredibly well. So that's going to be a big boon to this team, just having three guys you can have on the field just about every down. And they'll go play above your average standards is just a fantastic thing to have. I think the linebacking group, this team's got a bit faster. The secondary does concern me a little bit. If they can keep the heat on quarterbacks, though, they're going to be tough to run on. Of that, I've got no doubt, particularly if Wilfork comes back. I really do think this could be a very effective lockdown unit, just because they'll beat people up at the line of scrimmage. Whether it'll be enough to carry the team, I am not so sure. I mean, you look at the schedule they've got this year. Fortunately, again, the division isn't the best, hence why they were sort of able to amble their way to a division title last season. Early in the season, some big games. They've got New England and Tennessee, then Kansas City in weeks 3 through 5. That's going to be a tough spell for them. I think they're going to need to take at least one or two of those. Jacksonville in week 1. They host Jacksonville week 1. Of course, that's going to be a big game within the division. But I think the schedule doesn't look too bad. I mean, when you've got the AFC South, there's some winnable games there. Even though I do think Tennessee look likely to be the class of the division, I think the Texans have a better roster. But the Titans just look more ready with Mariota at quarterback as opposed to a rookie. But it's also a pretty tough spell on the road after the bye week. They play 3 home games, which are some Houston, Kansas City, Tennessee and Kansas City, not going to be easy for them. Then they come back off the bye in CenturyLink Field to play the Seahawks, obviously a tough place to play. Then they'll be heading home for the Colts, and then away to LA. That's sort of coast to coast over the course of 3 weeks. I think that's difficult. I certainly think those are 3 important games for this team as well. I think the division is there for the taking, and for that reason I see this team going 10-6. I don't think it's going to be an impressive 10-6. I think this team's going to win a lot of ugly games on the strength of a very, very good defensive unit. The run game will be the focal point. I think they'll shorten games, they'll keep teams out of the end zone, and they'll make enough plays to get by. If you can't pass protect against this team, I think it's going to be very hard for you, and there'll still some wins on that basis alone. There are some teams with some iffy O-lines on their schedule, and I think I look at a team like the Seahawks, and it's just, whilst I think the Seahawks on paper should probably win that game, it's just hard to necessarily they will with as much certainty as you'd think, because that O-line going up against this lot could just get out of hand for them. So I've got them going 10-6. I'll reveal whether I think that makes the playoffs once I've concluded with this series. In order for them to exceed that record, or even achieve it, though, there's 3 areas, and I think it's particularly true for this team, with the first area being the quarterback spot. Last year, Brock Osweiler put forward some of the worst starting quarterback play I've witnessed. Anything is better than him, surely. That's what you'd think. This is why I think they do not go with Tom Savage. There's very little excitement to be gained from that, even if he may be the better option for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. But DeShaun Watson will add a dynamic element that was sorely missing from this passing game last year. I expect there to be mistakes. I don't think he's the type of quarterback that you can do what you did with Dak Prescott last year in terms of the offense. I think you've got to let him, and it's kind of his play style anyway, let him do a little bit more. As a result, I'm expecting there to be turnovers, but if he can just make enough plays and the guys are there around him to do it, then this offense can certainly be a threat. The safety play is going to be essential. It's the potential weakness on a very, very good looking defensive group. You can extend this to the corners as well, but the safety position is the one that stands out most. I think if this team's going to be particularly successful, and that includes the playoffs, it's going to be on the strength of the defence, and there can't be a major weakness. I think they're going to need to be a top 3-5 unit to go too far this season because of, as I say, the inexperience at quarterback. And finally, the running game. I've hinted at it, and I'm a firm believer that the run game is going to have to carry this team, regardless of whether it's Tom Savage or DeShaun Watson. The passing game is just going to have to do enough to keep teams from stacking the box every single play. I think the depth is there. They're not going to have to run Lamar Miller into the grounds like they did last season. They've got Donta Foreman, they'll have Alfred Blue. If these three guys can stay healthy, the line can run block for them effectively, then I think, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to shorten games and have this defence do its thing should be enough to see out most teams and make the playoffs. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the 2017 Texans. As always, let me know, what do you think? Any players that I've missed out? Anyone you think should be mentioned here or I should keep an eye on during training camp? Give us a shout, whether it's the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. Find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football with people. It's just, it's just one of those things. Always fun. I'm certainly interested in hearing your guys' opinions. If you've enjoyed this episode, check out some more. I'm almost halfway through the series. Tomorrow will be the halfway point. So check some of them out as well. I'm sure you'll get some enjoyment from them. There's plenty of other stuff on the channel. Hoping to have a big announcement for you guys soon in regards to what we'll be doing with our Friday episodes. And as always, if you can like, share, subscribe and check out the Patreon, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great evening and go Bucks.